Hello children, this is the second lesson, the three questions. This prose written by Count Leo Tolstoy. Count Leo Tolstoy, he was famous Russian novelist and philosopher. His greatest work, War and Peace. He has written this story, The Three Questions. In this story, a king has three questions. Obviously, he needs answer. So, before I start, I will read the paragraphs. You open your textbook and listen carefully. The three questions, Count Leo Tolstoy. A king has three questions and he is seeking answers to them. What are the three questions? Does the king get what he wants? Read on to find out. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew three things. These three things were: what is the right time to begin something? Whom should a king consider the most important? What is the most important thing for a king to do? The king, therefore, sent messengers throughout his kingdom, promising a large sum to anyone who would answer these three questions. Many wise men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. In reply to the first question, some said the king must prepare a timetable and then follow it strictly. Others said that it was impossible to decide in advance the right time for doing something. The king should do whatever seemed necessary at that time. And others said that the king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. But then others said that there were some things which could be urgent. These things could not wait for the decision of the council. In order to decide the right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future. And only a magician could do that. The king, therefore, would have to go to magicians. In their answers to the second question, some said that the people most necessary to the king were his counselors. Others said priests. A few others chose doctors, and yet others said that his soldiers were the most necessary. To the third question, some said attack. Others chose fight, and yet others religious worship. As the answers to his questions were so different, the king was not satisfied. He decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit who was widely known for his wisdom. The king put on ordinary clothes and went to meet the hermit. Before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguard and went alone. As the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king and continued digging. The king went up to the hermit and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. And he repeated the questions. The hermit listened to the king but did not speak. You are tired, said the king. Let me take this spade and work in your place. Thanks, said the hermit, giving the king his spade. When the king had done 2 beds, he stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit gave no answers. King has 3 questions and he is seeking answers to them. Seeking means finding. He is finding answers to them. See here, the thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew 3 things. The king gave a thought for consideration that he would always succeed if he could find answers to his 3 questions. What are the 3 questions? What is the right time to begin something? Then second question, whom should a king consider the most important? Then third question, what is the most important thing for a king to do? These are the 3 questions. The king wanted answers to these 3 questions. So he sent messengers throughout his kingdom. Messengers means a person carrying a message. A person carrying a message, and also he promising a large sum to anyone who would answer these 3 questions. The king declared to give a large sum money as a reward to the one who could come up with the answer. So many wise men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. The king received answers different. He received different answers to his questions. In reply to the first question, some said the king must prepare a timetable. Here, a few of them suggested him to prepare a timetable. ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಟೈಮ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಸಜೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ವಾಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್? ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ರೈಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಟು ಬಿಗಿನ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್? ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್, few of them suggested to prepare a timetable and then follow it strictly. Others said that it was impossible to decide in advance the right time for doing something. And others said what? It was not possible to decide the proper time to begin any work. The king should do whatever seemed necessary at that time. He should do whatever it comes in his mind. And others said that the king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. A few of them suggested him for this question to king needed a council of wise men. Council means a group of people chosen to advise. Group of people chosen to advise. ಸಲಹೆ ನೀಡಲು ಸೇರಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಗುಂಪನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸಲಹೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. But then others said that there were some things which could be urgent. So these things could not wait for the decision of the council. Suppose if any urgent matter, he could not wait for the council's decision. So it was not possible. It will not work for him. So these things could not wait for the decision of the council. In order to decide the right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future, and only magician could do that. The king therefore would have to go to a magician. See, some gave their opinion to look into the future. ಭವಿಷ್ಯವನ್ನು ನೋಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸಲಹೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. By taking a help of a magician. Magician ಅಂದರೆ ಮಾಂತ್ರಿಕಕಾರರ ಸಲಹೆಯನ್ನು ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. But in their answers to the second question, whom should a king consider the most important? Some said that the people most near the king were the councillors. Councillors, group of people chosen to advise. Others said priest. Priest means purohita. A few others chose doctors. And at others said that soldiers were the most necessary. See, for the second question, whom should a king consider the most important? Some said councillors, and some said doctors, priests, then soldiers. To the third question, what is the most important thing for a king to do? Some said attack, others chose fight, and others religious worship, dharmika pujegalu. As the answers to his question were so different, the king was not satisfied. He was not satisfied the answers by the wise men. As the answers to his question were so different, the king was not satisfied. Who was not satisfied? The king was not satisfied. Why he was not satisfied? Because all the wise men answered differently. He decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit. So he wanted to take the advice of a hermit. Hermit means a person who lives alone and lives a simple life, who was widely known for his wisdom. The king put on an ordinary clothes and went to meet the hermit. See, all the wise men answered differently, so the king was not satisfied, so he went to take the advice of a hermit. So he dressed. How was his dress? He put on ordinary clothes and went to meet the hermit. Before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguard and he went alone. To meet hermit, he went alone and he left his bodyguard and horse outside. As the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw hermits digging the ground in front of his hut. He reached near the hermit's hut. The hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king and continued digging. Who greeted? The hermit greeted the king and continued digging. The king went up the hermit and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. And he repeated the questions. King, he went near the hermit, but hermit greeted, but he did not speak any words. So king only spoke with him and he said why he had come to him. And he said, I wanted answer for the 3 questions. So he repeated the questions. The hermit listened to the king but did not speak. You are tired, said the king. The hermit, he did not speak any words more. So the king said, you are tired. Let me take the spade and walk in your place. So the king took his spade. Spade means a tool for digging. Hermit digging ಮಾಡ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಸ್ಪೇಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಅವನು ಯಾರು ತಗೊಳ್ತಾನೆ? ರಾಜ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾನೆ. And he continued to digging. Thanks, said the hermit, giving the king his spade. Hermit gave the spade to the king. When the king had the two beds, he stopped and repeated his question. See, beds means small patches of ground for plants. The king dug two beds. Then he stopped. Again he asked, repeated his questions. The hermit gave no answers. Hermit ಯಾವುದೇ ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನು ಕೊಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. See in the next class.